Hello, I'm John Nicholson and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's week 4 and I thought we would talk about Trump and Palestine, Trump and the Gaza Strip, because as you know, President Trump has said that he would like to clear all the people out of the Gaza Strip and force them into other countries, force them to go to Egypt and force them to go to Jordan and build casinos and hotels and his usual hideous developments along the coastline. I can't begin to tell you how repulsive this notion is. I'm sure you know that it is, that you agree that it is. First of all, it's illegal under international law to clear people from their land. And the Palestinians have experienced this a number of times. They were cleared from their land in what is now Israel. That's the reason that there are refugee camps in the Gaza Strip, because the people who lived in Palestine, in what now is Israel, were expelled from their land through terrorism and violence by Israeli settlers who forced them to flee, massacred many of them. Now, I've been going for a long time to Palestine and to Israel as a journalist. And I remember my very first visit when I went there, and it was an incredible experience because I went to the West Bank and I went to refugee camps, and people would come up to me and they would show me the keys. They would hold the keys, often big metal keys, to the houses which they'd been forced, or their parents and grandparents had been forced to evacuate in the land that is now Israel. They would show me their house deeds to their homes in what is now Israel. Because of course, Palestine was a British mandate. We were responsible for Palestine. And we gave these house deeds to Palestinian people. We guaranteed their safety and their security. And for some extraordinary reason, Palestinians still seem to have a degree of trust in the United Kingdom's sense of honour. And they would say to me, do people know, do they understand that we're entitled to go back home because our land has been stolen from us and we're living in refugee camps with the promise that one day we'll be able to return? And of course I had to say to them, well, quite honestly, first of all, I'm here as a journalist. I'm not here to answer on behalf of the British government, but I'm afraid the chances of the British government honouring these house deeds is slender. At that time, I interviewed Yasser Arafat in Tunis. I interviewed Hanan Ashrawi. I interviewed Benjamin Netanyahu and others on the Israeli side. And it seemed abundantly clear that there was a way forward that would involve giving security to Israel and would also allow a number of Palestinians to return home and would involve giving the Palestinians security. It became known as the two-state solution. And clearly there was a need for justice for the Palestinians. I interviewed Shimon Peres, who was to become Israeli president, and I said to him, don't you think at some point that Israel has to acknowledge the sins of your fathers, the way in which your state was created? Don't you have to acknowledge what was done to the Palestinian people? Because this was not virgin land that you moved into. This was a people who'd been there for 1,000 years. You stole people's homes. Do you not have to acknowledge that? And he told me that he thought for a peace settlement that was probably the case. And he recognized that without a two-state solution, there would never be peace for Israel and there would never be peace and security for the Palestinian people. And I remember in particular one person, Edward Said, the great author and humanitarian, friend of Daniel Barenboim, the Israeli pianist. They set up an orchestra together for Palestinians and Israelis. And he said to me, if you can explain to me one simple question, you will unlock this whole peace process. And it is this: why is it, because of the evil done to Jews in Europe, which we're not responsible for as Palestinians, why is it because of that I now have Europeans living in my family home in Jerusalem, which has belonged to my family for generations? We played no role in the Holocaust, and yet we're paying the price for the Holocaust. Why are you using your collective guilt in Europe to punish us in Palestine? If you can unlock that question, he said, you have the answer to the Palestinian-Israeli peace process. And of course, it was an excellent question. But I also identified, I remember, on that filming trip for the BBC, that there was a group, a sinister group, behind the scenes, it was a minority group, behind the scenes, who were paving the way for the failure of the peace process. And it was called Hamas. And they were saying, quite correctly, I think, to Palestinian people, that the Palestinian Authority under Yasser Arafat was deeply corrupt, which it was. And they were saying that the Israelis would never make peace, and the peace process was completely pointless, which sadly history appears to have shown was correct too. They were sowing the seeds of doubt and division amongst the Palestinians, and they had a deep, visceral, often anti-Semitic hatred for Israelis. And now we see the consequence of all the mistakes that we have made, the mistakes we've made in the West, the failure to cement the peace process, the failure to make concessions to the Palestinians, and this second catastrophe that has faced the Palestinian people in Gaza, where our politicians have been so cowardly, Keir Starmer in particular, with his refusal to condemn the collective punishment of the Palestinian people. The fact that early on in this onslaught against the people in Gaza, that he said it was acceptable to cut off water, for the Israelis to cut off water, he said that was acceptable. He reversed his position, of course. But what a weak leader he's been when it comes to condemning this collective punishment of the Palestinian people. And how proud I am that two successive Scottish First Ministers have been unambiguous in their condemnation of the Israelis, who are committing multiple war crimes against the Palestinian people, and have now started the same process in the West Bank. What we cannot do is allow any question of the forced removal of the Palestinian people from Gaza. That would be a further war crime. That is their home. And it's a pile of rubble now, made so by the Israelis. But it is the land that they wish to be on, unless and until they return in numbers back to their former homes in what is now Israel. The two-state solution is the only solution. Otherwise, there is continuing apartheid in Israel, and there is no peace process available. The last thing we should ever do is indulge the awful, ghastly Donald Trump with his racist proposals to clear the Palestinian people from the Gaza Strip and to inflict further collective punishment on the people of Palestine. The international community must never accept this. And we in the United Kingdom must not allow our politicians to wriggle. Keir Starmer must be forced to back the Palestinian people and peace, and to condemn Trump. I hope you agree, and I hope you'll add your comments here on my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.